Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in. Today we're exploring a dynamic in local church leadership that is absolutely crucial, yet honestly, it's often overlooked. We're talking about why deep pastoral compassion, without a strong ethical structure to back it up, actually leaves both hurting people and church leaders incredibly vulnerable. So, we're going to unpack the true anatomy of a safe ministry. We'll be drawing on the comprehensive partnership model from Restoring Hope Ministries to detail exactly why ethical oversight strengthens your ministry and genuinely protects your people. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the hidden crisis, why good intentions fail, ethics at the core, structures that protect people, and finally, the power of partnership. I want you to think about this question for a second. Where do hurting congregants turn when their crisis exceeds your pastoral training? It's a heavy, heavy burden, right? As a church leader, you've probably found yourself sitting across the desk from someone dealing with really complex trauma, severe addiction, or deep marital fractures. And in that moment, your pastoral empathy is overflowing. But the specialized clinical or ethical boundaries required to safely navigate that specific crisis, those might be missing. A senior pastor in Wisconsin really hit the nail on the head with this. He mentioned that before they had a structured partnership, they just had no clear pathway when someone in the congregation came to them in crisis. Having a trusted referral pathway is literally the difference between a vulnerable family falling through the cracks, maybe even leaving the church entirely, and a family being fully, beautifully restored. All right, let's move into Section 1, the hidden crisis, the reality of silent suffering. We have to pull back the curtain on what's actually happening on any given Sunday morning. We're talking about grief, severe anxiety, broken marriages, addiction, spiritual trauma. These silent struggles are sitting right there in the pews every single week. And here's the harsh reality. Without a trusted, affordable pathway for care that's actually anchored in Scripture, these individuals are just left to navigate it all alone. They either suffer in silence, they leave the community, or they turn to secular alternatives. And while those secular options might provide some help, they ultimately leave the person without care that aligns with their core belief system. Let me give you a real, tangible example of what happens when that hidden crisis is met with a structured care pathway. 14. That is how many months a woman in a Fox Valley church has been clean from addiction. She struggled completely in silence for years. Nobody knew how deep her pain went. But because her church had a partnership in place, she was quickly referred to a qualified biblical counselor. And you guys, she isn't just surviving right now. 14 months into recovery, she is literally leading a women's recovery group in her own church. It's just an amazing turnaround. That brings us to Section 2, why good intentions fail, and specifically, the danger of informal care. We really need to look at the massive contrast between isolated care and supervised care. Imagine a deeply empathetic pastor trying to counsel complex trauma entirely alone. That's isolated care, and it inevitably leads to dangerous blind spots, huge liability risks, and it will absolutely burn that leader out. But supervised care, it provides this critical dual layer of protection. When you introduce ethical oversight, you create shared burdens. It protects the leader from being crushed under the weight of liability, while simultaneously making sure the vulnerable congregant doesn't fall through the cracks. The takeaway here is that good intentions simply aren't enough. Safe, formal structures are what actually sustain a ministry over the long haul. Let's dive into Section 3, ethics at the core, moving beyond buzzwords. So, what do biblical ethics actually look like in this framework? Well, it means truth and love. So, absolutely refusing manipulation or weaponizing Scripture. It means uncompromising integrity. It means confidentiality exercised with deep wisdom, sharing only the absolute minimum necessary to keep people safe. And crucially, it requires the humility and the willingness to refer out to licensed professionals or medical providers when a situation clearly exceeds the ministry's scope. That willingness to just step back and say, we need outside help, is an absolutely vital safety mechanism. I absolutely love this phrasing. Ethics is not an add-on. It's the practical outworking of Scripture applied to real people, real suffering, and real responsibility. Think about it. In counseling, you have this very delicate intersection of spiritual authority and deep human vulnerability. And because of that power dynamic, these ethical guardrails are just mandatory. They aren't cold bureaucracy. They are literally love expressed through wisdom and order. Moving right along to Section 4, structures that protect people, the anatomy of safety. Let's talk non-negotiables. Think of these like the massive, unseen bottom of an iceberg that keeps the entire ministry ship from sinking. We're talking background checks, strict mandatory reporting compliance for any suspected abuse, Two deep leadership, which just means at least two adults are always present or have visibility, so nobody is ever isolated in a compromising situation. You also need clear, informed consent so people know the scope of their care. And finally, strict documentation standards, because concise, secure notes protect everyone involved. Okay, so how does this accountability actually happen in real time? It happens through a really structured weekly supervision rhythm. It starts with prayer, obviously. Then it moves into a de-identified case review to completely protect privacy. After that, there's a focus on skill and doctrine, followed by a documentation audit, and it wraps up with encouragement. This rhythm ensures that counselors are never, ever operating in a dangerous vacuum. They are continually being guided, refined, and shepherded themselves. And all of those operational steps we just ran through, they connect directly back to Proverbs 11:14, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Ethical oversight and supervised care aren't just clever corporate best practices. They're deeply, deeply rooted in the biblical mandate to seek wisdom and avoid isolation. And that brings us to our final section. Section 5, the power of partnership, building your care pathway. So how does a local church actually plug into this without having to build the whole shebang from scratch? Well, a church can partner with a ministry like Restoring Hope Ministries across a few different tiers. For example, the Mercy tier at $500 a month gets you 5 subsidized sessions. And it scales all the way up to the Equipping tier, which even includes a sponsored trainee seat to train an in-house counselor. These monthly commitments directly translate into highly affordable, supervised care for the hurting families right there in your congregation. Now, let's talk about the financial stewardship side of things. Every $100 partially subsidizes a session. You might be wondering, why not just offer it for free? Well, research actually shows that free counseling often inadvertently undermines engagement. Basically, if there's no skin in the game, people tend to drop off. But by making it highly affordable instead of totally free, engagement stays really high. And the brilliant part is, if a church doesn't use all its subsidies in a given month, they just roll directly into a scholarship fund. No resources wasted and nobody falls through the cracks. Now, if you wanted to build all this in-house, it's a massive undertaking. Just look at the timeline. Years 0 to 1 are purely foundations and governance. Years 1 to 3 are focused heavily on counselor formation. It honestly takes 3 to 5 years to reach real sustainability. Building a safe, ethically sound ministry infrastructure takes years of work. And let's be real, the hurting people in your pews today simply cannot wait 3 to 5 years for the church to figure out its governance. That's exactly why partnering with an established, supervised framework is such an incredible value for your immediate needs. Because when you make that investment, this is the result. We heard from an elder board chairman in the Midwest who noted that within just 3 months of partnership, a young couple on the verge of divorce received the biblical counseling they otherwise never could have afforded, and their marriage is restored. That right there is the undeniable, life-changing fruit of an ethical care pathway. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with this final crucial thought. Look honestly at your own structures right now. Is your church actually equipped to safely protect and restore the people you serve? I really challenge you to step out of the isolation of informal care. Explore the kind of supervised, ethical partnership that truly protects the vulnerable and honors the people you shepherd. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.